Hi, welcome to Understanding Conscious Cryptids with me, Kat Hansen, your host. Hi everyone, it's me, Kat. Today's lesson is going to be again about flying humanoids. I guess I didn't make myself clear because I've had a request to continue or speak on further about them. And I really apologize if I did not make myself clear on that. Anyway, I really want to stress this, okay? These guys, the bat people, are humanoids that can actually pass for humanoids at a distance, okay? So that means that they are shaped in proportion to humans, and they vary in size between, I want to say 4'5" to 6 foot tall. Now, I have a really interesting story in that when I was in high school, my English teacher told me a story. When he was a young man during the Depression, he was in the city. He had moved to the city from the country so he could try to find work. And he said that he lived in what they call a flop house. You know, it's like a rooming house, a boarding house. And he said that one day he was up on the rooftop in the morning smoking a cigarette before he went out to go look for work. And he saw on the other rooftop this man sitting on one of the air exchange cooler things that sits on top of the roof. I don't know what you call them. Anyway, he just kind of watched him, and assumed he was another, man up there doing the same thing he's doing, watching the sun rise and getting ready to go look for work, And every day he would see this man out there, and it got to be his habit that as the months passed by from winter into spring, he noticed that this man still wore this great big long overcoat type thing that he could see. And he thought, well, that was really strange. Maybe the guy's cold-blooded or something. He's not warming up to the first, before sunrise thing. Well, as it got further and further into spring, towards summer, it started getting hotter and muggier. And my teacher noticed that he never took that coat off. He had that coat on every morning up there, even though it was getting warmer and warmer and warmer, and muggy, really muggy. And then one morning he noticed when he went up that the man was there again, sitting on that air exchange. And the way that he sat, I want to really explain this because I'm not making it clear, I guess, is that it was almost like he was squatting, squatting there. That's the word I want to use, with the coat kind of hanging down on the sides. And then my teacher, Mr. B, said that for some reason he decided to hail him, this one morning because it had been really hot the night before. And he said it seemed like the temperature didn't go away because of the humidity. And he did the raise the hand over the head and yelled at him, "Hey," he says, "it's a hot one. Gonna be a hot one today." And with that, the man looked over at Mr. B and stood up and raised his arms out. And then that was when Mr. B realized that it wasn't a long duster overcoat type coat. It was wings. And this man kind of jumped down from the air exchange unit and hopped over to the edge of the building and then jumped off the edge of the building and then took off for flight. It's something that affected Mr. B his whole life after that. He thought he was witnessing a suicide, and instead this man, or being, flew off into the air. So he made sure when he and I were speaking to pass this story on along to me, because he knew that my people had legends about the bat people, and it was something that he and I shared because he always wondered what they were. Well, now people are seeing them more and more, and there again, it's because they're coming across more and more into our realm because the veil is thinning. Now there, I'm saying that word again, veil. Call it partition. Call it a protective barrier, whatever you want to call it. It's there, and the way that the Earth's frequency is shifting around, it's now thinning. So it's allowing things to come through to our realm. And these guys, some of them have already been here and have colonies here, because remember, this is a teaching planet. And these guys are going to be here to teach. They're here to learn and teach their own people what they have learned. So a lot of them come here and leave, but then some stay here and absorb the knowledge and act like sentries, like researchers. They plant themselves here and they watch us so they can learn from us and tell their own people what they're learning. So these are like the Aswangs, the ones that fly in Vietnam that you hear about, the ones that are women and sexually seduce the men and things and like that. Each of these specific beings is different and has their own agenda, their own reason for being here. But my point is that even though they are here, they all are doing the same thing. They're interacting with us. Okay, so their outcome is not always going to be different. It's going to have some elements in it that are the same because they're interacting with us. Okay? These guys, for the most part, are not to be approached because a lot of them either A, have no experience dealing with humans, or B, actively do not like us. Okay, so there's some stories where people are talking about them hurting humans. Well, that's true, because they want to be left alone and they do not want to be approached. They're the type of being that says, no, we don't want to communicate with you. If we want to communicate with you, we'll make the extra effort. Boy, I'm having a hard time speaking today, and I apologize for that. I guess it's because I'm so excited and worked up about this. As the barrier's thinning, I'm getting more and more calls and more notes dropped off to me, from people having issues with the beings and the creatures that are coming through to our realm. Another one of these beings that's coming through look like flying manta rays, and people are really confused with that because they've never seen a flying manta ray. Well, yeah, I guess that would kind of do it. I have, though, so who didn't know that? I do have the pictures of the flying fish that appear in our realm. People ask me a lot why I take these pictures, and I take them just as documentation and basically as a learning aid so people can see them and know that what I'm talking about, this is what it looks like. It's always easier for your mind to grasp something if it can see it and understand it. So that's why I do that. But anyway, they're seeing the beings that are coming from the 6th dimension. And these guys are biological machines. And that's a really interesting concept, because when I say biological machines, a lot of people might think Terminator, oh my God, run the other direction. Well, kind of. They are half machine and half creature. So these are the guys that you find out doing the strangest, most improbable, unbelievable stuff that you can imagine. You're sitting on the edge of your truck, you're smoking a cigarette, you look around, and here comes this big mantle-looking fish thing floating through the air with glowing yellow eyes that look like headlights. And it just slowly drifts past you to the point where you're like, oh my heck, what was that? And you can't get off the truck because you're scared, but at the same time you're excited, so you're like, you want to look and see. So people are sending me what they're seeing, and they don't understand. Well, my question always starts out very simple to the people. A, did it frighten you, or were you more curious? Did it put off a menacing air, or did it put off an air of indifference? Or was it curious? Did it come to see you? Was it a happiness type of vibe? I always ask these questions because these are really simple questions that people can ask themselves. And if you ask yourself these questions, then you're going to get an answer as to the type of cryptid that you're dealing with here. Because if you got a nervous, scared feeling in your body, that's your body telling you run. Be afraid, be very afraid. It's telling you you have something to be afraid of, or as my grandmother used to say, afeared of. You have something very, very fearful here, and you need to do the smart thing, and you need to run away. That's just the fight or flight scenario. Okay, and then humans are notorious for it. So I always ask people when they talk to me and tell me about these things, what was your reaction? How did you feel? Okay, and then the next logical step from there would be, and they have them tell me. Because if you've just got something that's coming by you and isn't showing you any bit of interest, that tells me he's here. He's seen humans before, and he's like, meh, who cares? There's something else here that I'm looking for. And that's perfectly fine. On the other hand, if he comes right up to you and he's staring at you, and giving you the literal once-over from front to back, well, maybe you need to be a little bit concerned, But on the other hand, if he touches you and he doesn't do anything, well, then maybe you don't need to be concerned. All I'm saying here is that these beings are coming more and more into our realm, and you need to be prepared, because people are more than prepared to handle things in this city. But what people don't understand is that the conscious cryptids are not going to stay out in the boondocks forever. They're not going to stay in the swamps forever. They're tired of that. They want a nice environment that they can live in and then they can thrive in. And they look at human society and they're like, I want that. Because we make the best areas for survival hours. So I think people need to be asking themselves a few questions about whether the intention that they are getting off of these creatures is good or is it bad? Because you can discern yourself between what's good and bad. You don't need me to do it. Okay? And that's kind of what I wanted to say there before I left off, because people need to be aware that we have the sensor inside of us to sense good and bad. And a lot of these creatures that come through, these beings that come through, are pretty scary, but only because we don't know what they are. We don't expect that look, and we don't bump into it every day. So, remember a few episodes ago I was saying that my friend Brian Sullivan and I grew up in the Star Trek generation, and we both were saying, how cool was that? Because it taught us to be open-minded, scientific but open-minded. And I think that's the best way for all of us to look at this, is to be scientific but be open-minded, and be like Captain Kirk. We're all ambassadors. We have to be cool, and we have to welcome beings here and extend the hand, because if we don't extend the hand, at some point the hand gets bitten. Okay? And that's what I really want to stress here, is that a lot of these beings come through, and they are very nervous about us as human beings. Maybe their own experiences are bad. Maybe their parents' experiences were bad, brothers, sisters. We don't know their history. But what we do know is that they're here alongside of us, watching us and learning about us. And so this way, if we extend the hand and show a little bit of common courtesy, that goes a long way in giving us brownie points. So, like I said before, give them a wide berth, be professional, be polite, be kind. Step back, let them do what they're going to do, and you do what you're going to do. Don't invade their space. I mean, seriously, if you went to a fishing hole and there was a guy at the fishing hole, you wouldn't take his space, would you? You'd wait until he had left, or you would ask him if you could fish in his fishing hole. Well, that's all they want from us, is a common courtesy. And I know people are going to give me a lot of flack for this and say, oh, Kat, woo, woo, woo. Whatever. You can say woo, woo, woo. Well, what do you think conscious cryptids are? They are a woo subject. You know why they're woo? Because other people don't want to accept that they exist. Well, I've got 4,000 some odd plus photographs that they do exist. Not to mention the legends and oral traditions of all the indigenous peoples here on the North American and South American continent, okay, as well as other continents. So we need to stop being so worried about woo and about all these other beings, and accept the fact that they exist and move on and move forward. Because if we do that, then we can continue to learn about them. And that's the most important part, continuing to learn about them. So that way we're educating ourselves as to their reality as well. Okay, my rant is done and my lesson is done. So I thank everyone for listening, and I promise that the next lesson will be better. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Everybody, please stay safe. Thank you for listening to me. I want to say thank you to my Patreons. You guys are awesome. I am so blessed to have you. And if you like what you hear and you like the channel, please like and subscribe. Thanks, everyone. Bye.